Hello fellow audio nerds, I'm Steph and this is Major Hi-Fi. I had been waiting to get my hands on these from AAW, the AAW Nightingale, for quite a while now. And with a pretty innovative driver design using planar magnetic drivers, I was curious how they would perform. So let's take a closer look. We'll go back in time, I'll share with you my first impressions, and then I'll meet you right back here for my overall thoughts. Alright, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to my place. So today I have with me the AAW Nightingale. So let's see what's inside the box here. I'm super excited. Alright, so as you'll see here, we've got some great accessories. First things first, there's this big kind of blue, it feels like leathery or something, storage case for all the accessories and everything. There's this other little wooden case that just kind of opens up right here for carrying them around with this like really pretty Nightingale kind of logo on it. We've got this warranty card / documentation card. We've got an airplane adapter and a 3.5mm to 6.35mm adapter. A bunch of ear tips. There's inside this bag, there's foam tips, silicone. I see a 2-flange tip in here. This nice little cleaning cloth for making sure everything's dust-free and all of that. And then, of course, the earphones themselves, which are really, really good-looking earphones. And then, of course, they also come with a detachable no audio cable. All right, so let's get into the design of these earphones. Check this out. So they're very good looking. They've got this, the shells here are made of metal material. I'm not sure exactly what kind of metal. And then it has this little kind of like silvery piece over here, which has like the little Nightingale logo, and it says planar magnetic on the side. You'll see that it's kind of a matte black finish, and then it's got this grill here, and underneath the grill it's kind of this like really thin web of like another like aluminum or something, kind of a webbed aluminum that looks really, really gorgeous. And I just love the look of these. To me, they're just super like mature and suave looking. Like they just look fancy and expensive, and I like that a lot. Now, as for the size, you'll sort of see that it's kind of a medium to large size. A little bit larger than like a regular medium large, I guess. I don't know. It's a little arbitrary, I guess, but just try to fit these in my ears. Let's see. Wow. Well, I don't know how they look to y'all, but they fit really easily, super comfortably actually too. I'm noticing that because of this kind of tight hook with the no audio cable here, it really like hugs behind the ear in a really easy way, and then the smoothness, the roundness of this in the back, it just fits very, very well. I have pretty like relatively smallish ears. And yeah, this is fitting in my ears like seamlessly, and I found a seal almost immediately. They're not super sound isolating, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess they are kind of like open in the back, so I guess that kind of explains that. But yeah, they fit extremely well. Just want to kind of take a look here to see a little bit more about this design. It's got kind of just a normal kind of nozzle there. You know, I kind of imagine these won't be great for like those with super, super small ears, but for mine, which are relatively small, but can fit other earphones like decently, these work really well, like really, really well. So taking a closer look at this no audio cable, it's pretty, isn't it? So this is the no audio Symphonium Tiburon. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Symphonium Tiburon. It connects to the earpieces via these 2-pin connectors here, and then it terminates to a 3.5mm connector. And the connectors on these just are really, really beautiful and strong. They're made of rhodium, and then it's got this like carbon fiber kind of like sheet over top of them. So they really kind of are very strong, but also look really good at the same time too. Now, as for the cable itself, if you saw any of the other AAW videos, reviews that I did, you'll know that this specific cable uses UPOCC copper. It's basically made specifically to enhance the the musical signal for you. Reduce resistance, and yeah, just kind of make sure that the signal transmission is optimized specifically for music. And then, so on each side, there are two individually insulated conductors here that are kind of like braided together, and then they meet in the middle, and then they're all braided together, all four. So it's a really nice looking cable, and one that also should sound really nice. And based on the other review that I did of the other AAW stuff, it did sound really nice. So before getting into the sound of these, I do want to quickly just talk about the drivers, because it is a pretty innovative driver design. Inside of these driver housings are planar magnetic drivers. They're really small, like 15 millimeters planar magnetic drivers, which is pretty remarkable because there's not really like other IEMs that do it in that kind of way. The drivers are made to be super efficient, because otherwise they need a lot of power in order to drive them. But that said, it does have an impedance of 250 ohms, but it does have a high sensitivity at the same time, 105 dB SPL. So we'll see how much power they really need to get the most out of them. So that said, it's got a super thin, like nano grade diaphragm in here next to magnet arrays. And the kind of special thing about it is that the voice coil delivers the signal like directly to the diaphragm, and this basically makes it so that the diaphragm can be more flexible and it's just like more conductive. So anyway, I don't exactly know like how that will translate with the sound, but I am excited to give them a listen and see for myself. So I'll get it set up here. All right, so for this first impressions listening, I'm just going to be listening through the Micro IDSD Black Label by IFI. I've got the IEM match on. So yeah, let's see how they sound here. Alright, I was just listening to the song Normal by Connor Oberst and the Mystic Valley Band, and I really enjoy the low end on these. It's definitely not emphasized really at all, but it just feels extremely natural. It feels really realistic, actually, like I could hear the low frequency overtones of the kick in the room in this song, and it just, yeah, it sounds great. But something really interesting about it is that even though it doesn't feel overly emphasized, there's this quickness to it and this kind of tightness to it, which sounds really like, gives it this extra punchiness, so that then, especially when the bass comes in, it's really groovy as the two play together. So I'm really impressed with the low end so far. Alright, yeah, I was just listening to the song Shout Mountain Music by Old Crow Medicine Show, and something really beautiful about this track. So the upright bass is like doing this really like kind of dancey walking movement along with the song, and because of that kind of quickness that I described in the low frequencies, that's happening in the low mids as well. So the bass just has this really moving energy, and at the same time there's still kind of this element of warmth to it that's kind of hard to put my finger on. It sounds really great though. And then the middle part of the mid-range, the banjo, the kind of darkly mixed mandolin, the background vocals, the hand claps, all kind of have nice separation from each other, but really interestingly, there's great separation between those instruments and the vocal compared to usual. The vocal and the lead fiddle really kind of step forward, have a great sense of articulation. So yeah, there's something interesting going on there, but it sounds really great and it works well for the song. Wow, oh my gosh, yeah, the highs are really interesting with these earphones. I was just listening to the song, what's it called, Sweet Spot by Kim Petras, and the thing that's so interesting about it is that her voice in the song is mixed really brightly, and I definitely get a feeling of airiness and breath from her voice, but there's, at the same time, there's also this really gorgeous smoothness to it that really, it's not harsh at all, but it's still very articulate. It's a really interesting high end, and I kind of heard a similar sort of thing with the hi-hat sample, and with the brighter synths, which have that kind of airiness and that like top quality, but feel a little bit like thinner or smaller, or like they're kind of just like leaning up a little bit. So it's a very interesting high frequency, and it's really effective actually for this song as well, because especially when it goes to the chorus and everything gets really wide, you can hear that the highness of those instruments really kind of come through with a little bit of emphasis, at least in that sort of way, in that kind of region. Still very like warm and smooth, but also with detail. Really great. Beautiful. I was just listening to the song Fever by Ray Charles featuring Natalie Cole, and the soundstage is also like has these really interesting qualities to it that are super aesthetically pleasing. So for example, the intimacy of both vocals in the song have that intimacy because that high frequency thing going on, and they sit really forward, but then they have great kind of contrast and separation from the far off organ and keys and stuff going on. But in between those two extremes, you've got this electric guitar which sits in between them, but it doesn't really leave any holes. It kind of fills up the entire middle space. And that's where things get really interesting, because this song starts off really sparse and then finishes, you know, as it goes on, it gets more and more complex. And with these earphones, it handles both really beautifully. And it seems like, you know, the guitar filled up that middle space, and then it was able to like leave more and more space for the other instruments coming in as the song went on. So it was really impressive. And also something kind of interesting about the soundstage with this is that the strings in the song, kind of the wider panned like electric guitars and stuff, didn't feel like expansively wide to me. They just didn't. There's this really strong kind of phantom center there, really strongly held down by the bass in the song and by the vocals in the song, kind of really holding this very solid center. That said, even though it wasn't like super expansive, when there's sort of like these cymbal embellishments or like kind of brighter wide embellishments, it came through in a really wide way. So it kind of gives you that really emotionally impactful response from mixes that utilize that kind of like that usage of width, I guess, in the song. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna keep listening and kind of develop my thoughts on a few things going on with these, and yeah, I'll meet you back at the Major Hi-Fi office for my overall thoughts. All right, here we go. Overall, the low frequencies of the Nightingale have this really beautiful sense of realism and evenness to their sound signature, and they really produce the lows in a full way and in a harmonically complex way. And they're not overly emphasized really particularly at all. However, because they have this really nice sense of punchiness and tightness down there, they still come through with a great sense of energy and really actually contribute a lot to the feeling of groove that that certain songs use low frequencies for. As for the middle frequencies of the Nightingale, the low mids and the middle part of the mid-range for the most part felt really even and super realistic again. They kind of had this feeling of fullness, but also just like sounded very harmonically complex. I did hear a little bit of a boost perhaps right around 700 hertz to my ear. And what this did is it really brought out a lot of room mics and reverbs that otherwise would sit a little bit further back, but it really kind of brought those forward a bit, those room mics. And it actually contributed, I think, to the sense of soundstage and just to mixes that utilized reverb a lot. But that said, I heard a little bit of a dip at the bottom part, or the top part, I guess, of the middle part of the mid-range, right around 1K. And that dip actually really created this sense of separation between things sitting more in the high mids and then things that are more like specifically mid-range instruments. And I thought that it was really, really useful. It's not like a super realistic in that area, but what it does is it just creates this really like detailed separation that contributes a lot to dense arrangements in a really powerful way. And then in the high mids, there was a boost up there at like kind of the top part of the high mids, and this just added a really nice sense of articulation and detail to voices, to strings, anything with high-mid info kind of took a little bit of a step forward for you, and is really an interesting mid-range, one that had both qualities of quickness and detail, kind of mixed with a little bit of a sense of warmth to it. Now, I really quite enjoyed the high frequencies of the Nightingale because there's a little bit of a boost in the lower treble and a boost in the upper octave. And so what this did is it brought vocals forward a little bit, gave them lots of articulation, detail, enunciation. And then in the upper octave, it kind of gave this really nice sense of air to it. But it did all of those things, bringing out all this detail while minimizing the amount of harshness or sibilance that you might otherwise have. So it did a really great job representing vocals to my ear. But the thing that I thought was very interesting about the way these high frequencies worked was that, yes, attacks are going to get a little bit of extra emphasis because of where they're sitting in like the lower treble, right? But that said, despite that, I thought the high frequencies still did a really great job of bringing out a sense of harmonic complexity to high frequency instruments like cymbals and pianos and strings and things like that. Finally, as for the soundstage of the Nightingale, I thought it was absolutely remarkable. The sense of depth that I got from these earphones was very, very well done. It's sort of interesting because certain instruments sit really nice far back in space, and yet there is still this really specific feeling of intimacy from vocals, for example, because of the high, mid, and lower treble boost that you get. But then in addition to that, I think that middle part of the mid-range bump around 700 really sort of highlighted room mics and vocals. So there was this already nice sense of depth there, but then add to that all the harmonic complexities of the room sound. It really made for a really pleasant sense of depth, one that was really detailed. As for the sense of width, it was very interesting because there's sort of this heaviness to the low mids. And I guess like for me it comes across as a sense of warmth, but there's also a tightness to it too. And so it really anchors things to the center. And as a result, sometimes the sense of width felt a little bit narrower than I was like kind of expecting, especially considering how kind of quick things were moving and how much depth there was. But that said, once certain mixes that really emphasize like a big wide spread comes across really well with these earphones, and it does so in a really emotionally impactful way, because it's not kind of creating artificial sense of width. It's really showing you what the mix is putting out there in terms of the sense of width, and it reacts in an appropriate way there. Finally, as for the sense of height, there's a lot of nuance with the height, and it's interesting because even though the high frequencies are not like super emphasized and the low frequencies are not super emphasized, I did feel this kind of subtle pull of extension in both directions, and it really created, for me at least, a pleasant sense of height that was detailed and oriented, but it didn't feel like overly emphasized. Overall, the AAW Nightingale is a really unique IEM. It has a super comfortable fit. It looks super classy and just very like smooth and really good looking. And then additionally, it has a really interesting sound that really marries a feeling of thickness and tightness and warmth with a feeling of detail and articulation. Thank you so much for watching. For another perspective on the AAW Nightingale, please check out the link in the description box down below. I've left a link there to my colleague's review of the same IEMs. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. Alright, I will see you next time. Bye.